Welcome back to the Future Self podcast. We can take challenges as either inspiration to grow or a reason to remain the same.
Everyone's been through trauma. No one's special in that way. I think that sometimes the easier route is to take trauma as an excuse to be like, I'm just going to run with this, like this happened to me, and not actually feel it, but talk about how horrible it is, and then continue a cycle of coping mechanisms to either keep you in that state because the ego loves to attach to patterns, specifically negative, and like that's the easy route, because then you become special, right? Like if you attach yourself to something and you're like, woe is me, that makes you more special than the people who are doing good, or you get more love, more attention, more whatever you might subconsciously be looking for, but you actually don't feel it. Or you go through trauma like every other person in the world, and you be courageous, you face it, you feel it, and understand as well that feeling isn't like a linear thing. It's not trauma happens, you feel, and then you get over it and you're all good. It might come up like 10 years down the track and you have to re-feel. Things might trigger you and you re-feel. But feeling and then being like, okay, I can feel that this doesn't feel pleasant, this doesn't feel good, and what can I do about it? Do I want to keep feeling this way? No. Or like, do I want to experience this for a really long time, or just for the time that it sits in my body, let it pass, and then continue on with doing something that makes me feel good and puts good into the world? That's what I meant by that.
Is trauma an advantage or disadvantage to life?
It can be both, depending on perspective. Perspective is everything. Like, again, and this is the thing that ego loves to attach. And when I say ego, I think people assume it's bad. It's not. Ego, like, we need it. But you can either attach to your downfalls, and again, like the self-fulfilling prophecy, it perpetuates, or you can attach to your successes, and sometimes that's not always a good thing either. So it's like a fine balance between the two, or acknowledging both and just being.
If you had a choice then to go through the traumas that you went through,
Yeah.
or to be able to not, what would you choose and why?
I'd go through every single one of them, probably feel them more deeply and acknowledge them more deeply, because it would mean that the work I have to do later on is maybe a little bit less. But the reason being that everything that I've experienced in my life, everything you've experienced with your dad, your mum, everything that we have come up against in our lives make up the product of our psyche now. And that'll continue to happen. In 10 years' time, everything that's happened will have been a big part of who we are. And while I don't think that that's saying like, oh, everything happens for a reason, I used to really believe that. I think now I don't believe that it happens for a reason. I believe that we can make a reason out of it.
Fair.
And I believe that we can learn things from it. But for me to tell you, sit across from the table and be like, oh, your dad died for a reason. That, like, I can't sit here and say that I believe that fully. When trauma occurs in someone's life or bad things happen, I think it's insensitive to be like, that's happening for a reason. Like, you're all good. Don't worry about it. But if you choose to be like, okay, this really shit situation's happened, I can either turn it, like, I think it's more about adaptability and flexibility with that, and also coming to terms with the fact that shit things happen. Sometimes it's nice for us to tell ourselves, I can make this into a reason. Not everything happens for a reason, not necessarily, like my family's riddled with addiction for a reason. Like, this is for the cause of greater good for me, but it's happening. I don't know what the reason is. There might not be a reason, but I can create my reality from that. I can create a reason from that. And it can either be like productive to my general well-being and health and others, or it can be unproductive and perpetuate.
I interestingly agree and disagree at the same time, like 51% to 49.
Tell me.
Just in the sense that I think that everything happens for a reason. So I've got it tattooed on me.
I can't believe I didn't notice that.
But I also very much agree with it might not happen for a reason, but you tie a reason to it. And from my perspective, I think that is just as purposeful.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, my father didn't pass away for a reason in someone's eyes, but in my eyes, I'm like, yeah, but that put me on this pathway to impact thousands of other lives. So that seems like a reason to me.
Yeah.
But I also heavily agree on the point of if something bad happens, I'm not up in someone's grill going, oh, it's for a reason. It's for a reason. Yeah, like shit things don't just happen. It's for a reason. I'll always say to someone, it will make sense in time.
Yeah.
But yeah, very interesting because I haven't even thought of it like that. It's kind of conflicting in my own brain where I do think things happen for a reason, but then I also do think that we can just put a reason to it for it to make sense.
Can I ask you then, at the risk of sounding like really abrasive and blunt, did your dad pass away and then you created a reason for it? Or did your dad pass away and you're like, this has happened because I'm not meant to continue like X direction?
Yeah, it's a great question because it both of those perspectives are so right in their own sense.
Yeah.
I was 12.
Yeah.
It was depression, suicide, so self-chosen. I didn't sit there once my mum told me and be like, oh yeah, like for a reason.
Yeah.
But I so heavily now agree that it was for a reason.
Yeah.
So that then also plays on that perspective of it makes sense in time. So at the moment I wasn't like, yeah, this happened for a reason. Something good.
I just need to wait. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like that now though. So if someone dear to me was to pass away now, I instantly, from my past experience, I would instantly think that's happened for a reason or it will make sense to me in time.
Yeah.
But yes, no, I didn't think that initially, but I so heavily do now. With the impact I make to people, who I am, the things I'm doing, I do think that it did happen for a reason.
Do you think that it would be harder for you not to think that?
That is a great question.